Hi there, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for joining me here today. In today's video, I want to talk about 3 different ways and tips to help you if you are dealing with burnout, stress, or some level of exhaustion from your job or career life. Now, when I first start working with people, they're often in a state of burnout, stress, and exhaustion. And it's happening really at a broader and bigger scale than it really ever has in the past. Companies are expecting more from people. That grind of putting in so many hours for so many years is really starting to have its long-term negative effects on people. So it's a really relevant topic right now. And even if you feel like it's not, the interesting thing about stress and things like stress and exhaustion is they're gradual and incremental. Sometimes we don't really realize it's happening until we get to a point where we simply can't cope anymore. And I don't want you to get to that point. I also want to say at the beginning of this video is if you're a person who feels like maybe this stress has gotten too much, please do seek some medical attention of some sort. This is not meant to be for you where you're really at your breaking point. If you're there, tips and tricks probably are, it's probably beyond where you're at, and please do get extra support. Don't stay where you're at. Get some extra support because your health and your well-being probably need you to. So just keep that in mind. So what I want to start by saying is, one of the other reasons why people can feel quite stressed and burned out is if they're in a job or a career that is not in alignment with them. And those are people that I work with. If you feel like you've been in a job in an environment that's just doesn't feel right for you, it feels like you're trying to fit in, that can also cause a lot of stress. So if that's you, please listen on here. I've got some tips for you. So the first suggestion, and this is really, in my opinion, this is one of the most powerful thing you can do. Really, it's that significant. You make this shift alone and you could start to see some significant changes in your life overall. And it's not a sexy topic. I'm just going to say from the onset, when I say the word, you're probably not going to be super excited to hear it, but I've seen it implemented and it really can change lives. And that is boundaries. Where are you at with your boundaries? Boundaries are such a big topic. I think sometimes we think it's just about, say, our time, especially when it comes to a workplace situation, right? There are a lot of people who are working in jobs that are requiring really, a person and a half to do one person's job. That's what I'm hearing and I'm seeing a lot of. So we often think it's just time, but there's actually a number of different types of boundaries. One of them certainly is the time boundary. Say you're in a job where you're giving far too many hours, working 60 hours a week consistently. That's obviously going to create burnout and exhaustion in the long run. Do it once in a while because of a special project. That's one thing. But if you're continually doing this over time, absolutely. Another one is energy. Are you a person who comes home from their job and sort of runs through all the scenarios in your mind, runs through all the potential problems, maybe runs through a lot of the politics that are going on and some of the struggles you're having in that way? That's another way that can really lead to exhaustion and burnout. Another one is money boundary. That can happen if you are working in a job where you constantly feel you are underpaid. That's going to start to wear on you over time. And that's also happening for many, many people right now. And there's a fourth one I want to mention today. And there are more than 4, but just kind of 4 I'm talking about today. And I don't know a better word for it, so I call it a spiritual boundary. And that is when you are going to work and you're having to really become a completely different person than you really are to either fit in or maybe the company you're working for or the people you're around, are lacking in integrity, or some of their decisions are maybe don't feel in alignment where your ethics and where your morals lie, that can really, really start to wear on you really over time. So, and that is one that is happening more and more. That is one that it's, well, I don't even know if it's happening more and more. I think people are more open to sharing it now and are really acknowledging and accepting the effect this is happening on them, right? You're living out of alignment with their truth. So you might be doing that, living out of alignment with the truth of who you really are. And so looking at your boundaries and all these different areas and other ones, if you can think of, can be super powerful. Now, keep in mind that boundaries are something you create, you implement, and you have to uphold. It is not up to anybody else to uphold your boundaries. It's about you stating, this is what I need, this is what I'm capable of, this is where I'm at, this is my line, this is it. And you upholding that. So it does require a commitment on your part to follow through, because if you just state, this is my boundary, but then you just, somebody tries to cross it and you let them, that's really on you. And that's the empowering part. It is on you. So isn't that great? It's actually up to you to choose how you want to be treated and how you want to show up and how you want to live your life. And there's a certain flair, there's a certain way we can really implement boundaries that is more effective. It's about being truthful and honest. It's not about, okay, this is it, I won't do this. It's not confrontational. It's really about just stating where you're at. So for instance, if you've got a boss who continually pushes more work on you, it can sometimes be just questioning, okay, it's like, just so you understand, talking to your boss, I've got a full workload. I've got, this projects I'm working on. And you're asking for more, what would you like me to drop? Right? Instead of just going, a boss comes to you and says, can you do this? And you're feeling obligated and going, oh, sure, I guess I can do it. Thinking to yourself, oh, there goes my weekend. So it's communicating in an honest, fair, and a really open way, a solution-oriented way that, this is where you're at and this is what you're capable of. And if you're working with people who are, who are open, it can really work. It can really make a change. What I really recommend to people, and especially if you're burned out and exhaustion, but overall in general in life, when we're making changes, big changes happen by the changes and the things we do every single day. That's how change is really created. Yes, we can make massive changes in a short period of time. It is entirely possible. But sometimes that is harder to do because it's a real shock to the system. When we make big changes really quickly, our egos crop up because our ego wants to keep us safe, and translation safe to ego means stay the same, right? So start to make little changes. And here's the thing. If you've been showing up and you've been doing things where your boundaries are quite loose, you don't want to come in, and implement day one, 20 new boundaries. The people around you are going to be in shock. They're not going to know what to do because they're used to dealing with you in a certain way. So just start gradually. Just start feeling into it. It might feel a little crunchy at first. It might feel a little awkward. If you're not used to this, kind of standing up for yourself, it might feel, just be prepared for that. It's okay. There's this notion that we have to be comfortable in life. Well, I look at this kind of a situation and I go, is being stressed out, exhaustion and burned out, is that really comfortable? Is that really good? Is it bringing you joy? Not likely. So isn't it worth a little bit of discomfort in the short term to create longer term joy. And know that it gets easier. It really, really gets easier. Once you start, you get in the rhythm of it and you really start to own it and go, okay, I can do this. It's like anything else. The more you practice it, the better you get at it, the easier it becomes, and you really start to see how it's positively affecting your life. It really is extremely, extremely powerful. Now, tip number 2, if you are somebody who has not been very good with boundaries, been a bit loose with them, I don't recommend a solution being just changing jobs. So say you're in a situation where you're feeling really overwhelmed at work, whether it be workload, politics, whatever it might be. Don't just change jobs as a solution to that until and unless you've done a little bit of work where you're at to try to change the situation. Because here's the thing. Like I said earlier, boundaries are about you. And if you don't have strong boundaries and you go somewhere else, guess what? You're bringing some looser boundaries with you. And chances are that scenario is going to recreate itself in a new job, with a new boss, with a new company. And yes, you might be able to find a job where, say you're working for somebody amazing. You go to an interview and this boss is amazing and you go work for them and they're totally understanding about, the work home life balance. But what if they leave? It's like you become then dependent on something outside of you to create balance for you. And that's never the place we want to come from. We want to come from a place where we're in charge of how we get treated. We're in charge of how we feel. It's really, really important if you want to make that change. And so try to make the changes where you're at. Now, if you start to implement some boundaries and you can sense it's not going well where you're at, I don't always recommend keep going. Like if you're meeting a lot of resistance, say your boss is giving you more and more workload and you've been kind of putting up boundaries and you've been holding them, but they're just keep pushing and pushing. Well, then there's a sign that it's likely time to make a shift of some sort. But then you've done some work. You can know, if you leave, you're doing it from not only an empowered place, but a really well-informed place. Deep in your soul, this was not for you. You can really feel it. And then you're moving towards something. There's a big difference between moving towards something and trying to escape something. And you think about that for a moment. Are you trying to run towards something or trying to run away from something? The energy is quite different. So just do a little bit of that work, or say if it's a money thing. Say you've been feeling undervalued and you've had the conversation with your boss. Maybe they're open to it. Like maybe you're undervalued, but maybe you've never ever had the conversation. Now figure out how you want to have that conversation. Have the conversation. But if you find out there's simply no room to budge and you're capped out, this is all you're going to get, well, then Then you can leave knowing you stood up for yourself. You asked for what you wanted, and these are such valuable tools. You've asked for what you wanted. Okay, you didn't get it. Well, now you can make a new decision based on that information. So tip number 2, don't just jump ship without doing some work, digging a little bit deeper and finding out what you can do as a person. Tip number 3, this is not about dealing with the work situation. It is more about the personal habits you've created to help you cope with the situation. So what happens usually is if we're in a bad situation at work, whether we're feeling out of alignment, whether we're burned out, whatever reason it is, we're not feeling happy. That's the bottom line, is we're not feeling a sense of joy in what we're doing anymore. So we start to create these coping mechanisms in our personal life to help us deal with what's over here. And these coping mechanisms don't tend to be healthy. So what am I talking about? Things like Netflix binges, drinking more alcohol, eating really horribly, shopping, retail therapy. Because we're not having that sense of fulfillment and joy, we're finding little ways to create sort of like little hits of joy. But in the long term, those little hits of joy can really have a long-term negative effect on our health, being our mental, our physical, and you know what, our financial health. You know, a lot of people, when I talk to them, they're worried about money, leaving, say, the corporate world. But when you start to add up the money spent on things that are bought to just deal with the fact that we're unhappy in a job, it's incredible. You know, there's many ways we take our personal resources, time, energy, money, whatever it might be, and we use them to cope with an environment that is not supporting us, or we're not feeling supported, whichever one it is, right? So my suggestion to you really, and my offering to you if you're open to taking it, is be honest with yourself. Are you doing some of those things? Are you creating some habits that are helping you cope? And as I said earlier, it's about making little shifts. So say, for instance, you get home from work and you're tired, and so you treat yourself to an evening of Netflix, okay? Say that means for you a few hours of TV watching, which is, you know, a lot. Maybe break that down, give yourself a half hour, an hour, and then introduce a half an hour of listening to a podcast, something that interests you, or a topic that you love, or maybe a career idea you're thinking about, something that elevates you, that brings you up to a higher level. Just one little thing. You know, say you're eating really horribly. You don't have the energy when you get home. And I know what that feels like, believe me. Getting home and you're just like, oh, the last thing I feel like doing is cooking a healthy meal. You know, change one of your snacks during the day. Say you eat a granola bar, like a processed granola bar, packaged granola bar as an afternoon snack, or you eat a chocolate bar. You know, go to the store and just buy some nuts or something, you know, but buy something that will actually help you nutritionally. You know, one of the things I've done, I love coffee. I love coffee. So what I try to do in the afternoon, I try not to drink too much coffee, is I introduce, you can get all kinds of, you know, like warm energy drinks that have things like medicinal mushrooms in them and herbs and all kinds of things that actually give you energy, because I like that boost in the afternoon. That's kind of my low period of energy time. So I try to implement those kind of beverages that I get from the health food store, not the sugary ones like Gatorade or those kind of, what's that, Bull's drink, whatever it's called. I don't even know what it's called. I've never had one in my life. Those kind of drinks, I mean like actually nutritious ones. So find little ways, just little ways. Again, because you're stressed out, exhausted, burned out, to all of a sudden change your whole diet or change your whole routine, that's going to be a lot. It's going to feel more overwhelmed. We don't want more overwhelm. That is not it. Start by taking a little step. Just start with one, you know, and start to build that confidence. Confidence comes from keeping commitments to yourself. So make that commitment that you are going to try one thing for a week. Start there, but start taking a step. You know, in all these three areas, these three tips, these three groups I have given you today, just start with one, but start. It's up to you. And I know it's challenging when you are feeling it's like, oh my gosh, I can't do one other thing. But remember, this one thing that you start is actually starting to remove you from there. It's not something that you're having to do to keep you in there. It's actually beginning that process of pulling you away and giving you more time, more energy, and freeing you from what it is you're dealing with. What I can tell you is when you are working in a job, whether you're feeling, when you're feeling more empowered, when you're feeling more valued, when you're feeling like you can handle everything, life just gets a lot better. It really does. And you don't feel the need to do some of these habits, or when you can create boundaries, you just feel more liberated. There is an end to this, but it really takes you making a commitment truly to your own well-being, your own sense of self, to make these changes happen. So I am going to leave this video here. I would like to mention here at the end that, if you are a person who is wanting to make a change, you're in that position where you are feeling out of alignment, like you are not working in a career, in a profession, in a field that is really resonating with you anymore. It's more about that sort of spiritual out of alignment. I'm just not in the right place. You can kind of feel it at your core. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can certainly go to my website, www.andreahorvath.com. You can actually get my email there, as well as sign up for a discovery session with me where we can talk about, where you're at, where you'd like to be. And if you're seeing this, through LinkedIn, you can direct message me here, or you can email me. As I said, go to my website. There's a few different options there, but we can just have a call, talk about where you're at, and I can give you an assessment basically of what I think is your next best step to help you move forward into something that you are more in alignment with, where you can feel more valued, feel more joy, feel more meaning in your work life. So I really truly hope this video has helped, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.